How you doing, man? It's your man, God of Dots, giving you the NFL content you've been asking for and been craving for. We're going to start our off-season look at each and every NFL franchise from top to bottom. And when we're talking about the top, we're talking about the Kansas City Chiefs. Kansas City Chiefs, who come in as defending Super Bowl champions after prevailing over the Philadelphia Eagles 38-35. Patrick Mahomes walked away from that game as Super Bowl MVP and also walked away from last season as the NFL MVP, posting up 41 touchdowns to 12 interceptions. When you have Patrick Mahomes as your quarterback, it's hard for the Kansas City Chiefs to not remain one of the favorites going into the upcoming season. But just like last offseason with the Tyreek Hill trade to the Miami Dolphins, Kansas City Chiefs have to overcome even more challenges for the upcoming season. Possibly the biggest offseason move was not even player personnel when we're talking about the Kansas City Chiefs. It is Eric Bieniemy going from offensive coordinator to become offensive coordinator of the Washington Commanders. How this plays a role in how the offense looks going forward, we have to wait and find out. Just like we thought they were going to struggle with Tyreek Hill being traded, they overcame and succeeded in capturing another Super Bowl title. Can Andy Reid pull off the magic once again? Now, we spent so much time talking about the Kansas City offense, and rightfully so, because they ended off last season as the highest scoring team at 29.2. It helps when you have Patrick Mahomes, NFL MVP at quarterback, Travis Kelce, All-Pro, probably the best tight end in the game of football. The wide receiving core, who at the time consisted of Kadarius Toney, Juju Smith-Schuster, and Marquez Valdes-Scantling. You saw the emergence of rookie running back Isaiah Pacheco to lead them in rushing, while also providing an outlet in the passing game as the Kansas City Chiefs transition from more of the deep, explosive offense of years past to more of a quality control West Coast offense type scheme. Now, like I said, we've talked so much about the Kansas City Chiefs offense. Let's take a look over to the defensive side. And we're talking about the defensive side of the ball for the Kansas City Chiefs. It begins and ends with Chris Jones setting the tempo, setting the pace, setting the standard. Last season, Chris Jones racked up 15.5 sacks, which is a very good number when you consider that Chris Jones is also responsible for setting the tone with the run defense. Now, this defense wasn't as spectacular or highly rated as the offense last season, ranking in the middle of the pack when it comes to points per game and yards given up. But with a bend and break style that Kansas City defense has employed over the past 4 to 5 seasons, which has led to 2 Super Bowl wins during that period, I think the recipe has worked out well enough for them to once again be a contender coming into the new season. I like the linebacker core led by Nick Bolton, who had an amazing 180 tackles last season. I also like the secondary led by L'Jarius Sneed, though not turnover prone as far as forcing turnovers, ranking towards the bottom of the league when we're talking about interceptions and fumbles on the defense side. That back end of that secondary came up with timely turnovers. And you need timely turnovers anytime you're talking about making a championship run, especially when you don't have a dominant defense, but a defense that bends but doesn't break. Well, we see a lot of that again this upcoming season. I think this secondary will be a lot better as those guys get a little bit more mature. I expect the linebacking core to perform at an even better level. Now we got to talk about that pass rush. What will it look like going into the upcoming season? You know, Frank Clark, who once again has been signed as a free agent by the Denver Broncos. Can Chris Jones carry the load? I'm kind of pessimistic about their ability to create a pass rush without Frank Clark. But if any team can get it done, Kansas City Chiefs showing you they have found ways to win in spite of not having what many would consider a top championship level defense. Can the offense, once again for this upcoming season, overcome the challenges that this defense may face during the course of this season? it calls into question, even though you have Andy Reid, a Super Bowl winning head coach, you have the returning NFL MVP Patrick Mahomes, hopefully fully healthy going into the season. Can they overcome the loss of offensive coordinator Eric Bieniemy, one of the best offensive minds in the game of football? Can they overcome that once again to rise to the top of the NFL and win a championship? I'm going to go on record right now in my offseason preview series and say the Kansas City Chiefs will not repeat. Now I want to look to the draft, some of the pieces that they brought in, and one player in particular stood out when I watched the game film. SMU wide receiver Rashee Rice. If you watch Rashee Rice, he reminds you a bit of players that they already have on the roster, such as Kadarius Toney, guys that will excel in the short and intermediate game while providing explosiveness in the offense to stretch the field on occasion. Like I said, when I watched the film on Rashee Rice, I expect him to fit in very well with what they're trying to do offensively ever since the departure of Tyreek Hill. I think he'll fit in and be able to be an early contributor. And this is just my opinion. You can take it as fact. I like the rest of the draft class, considering that Kansas City didn't have a lot of draft picks. But I think Rashee Rice, when we look back on the draft class from this past offseason for the Kansas City Chiefs, he's going to be the player that kind of jumps out at you and say, yes, he just giving me vibes of having an impact on this offense, such as Pacheco did the previous season coming in as a rookie. I'm expecting big things from him, considering that the competition may not have been top tier SEC level playing at SMU. But when we're talking about the talent, the players that he played up against, very one being Sauce Gardner, NFL Defensive Rookie of the Year last season, I think Rashee Rice handled himself well. I think he managed well, as you can see in the highlights here. And I'm looking forward to what he's going to produce on the season this year. And where we're talking about new pieces coming in, here you have a look at the 2023 draft class. Like I said, Rashee Rice is the player that stands out to me as being the biggest contributor, but possibly underrated. Right after him, round 3, Wanya Morris. With the departure of Orlando Brown, even though the Kansas City Chiefs did bring in Jawan Taylor, I expect Wanya Morris to play a pivotal role along that offensive line as possibly a swing tackle, being insurance in case guys get injuries. But overall, I think Kansas City, considering with the amount of capital they had for the draft, did an okay job. Nothing to complain about, but nothing to really brag about. And as we're talking about bragging, it's important that we look at Jawan Taylor, former Florida Gator, coming over from the Jacksonville Jaguars to replace Pro Bowl tackle Orlando Brown. Those who haven't watched, Jawan Taylor had a pretty good year last year playing for the Jacksonville Jaguars as he helped them get into the playoffs. But when you watch the game footage of Jawan Taylor, he does not run block. He's not necessarily the best pass blocker. And considering what they paid for him, can you really consider this a upgrade along the offensive line? I think Kansas City took a step back, but not a big step back with the signing of Jawan Taylor. I think Taylor will be a suitable enough tackle. And with the way that their passing game is set up now with the short and intermediate passing games and prioritizing getting the ball out of Mahomes' hands and getting into the hands of the playmakers, I think Jawan Taylor will hold up just fine this upcoming season. And when we're talking about changes being made this upcoming season, what will the Kansas City Chiefs defense really look like without Frank Clark patrolling the edges? Frank Clark didn't put up spectacular numbers, but Frank Clark has been a big game player, coming up with clutch sacks, clutch strips, clutch turnovers. Will they be able to replace him on the outside? I think not. Now, will this hold Kansas City from being a championship winning team? Who knows? Only time will tell if that is the case. My upcoming projection for this season for the Kansas City Chiefs, I expect them to once again walk away as division champions in the AFC West. But in my opinion, Kansas City does not, and I repeat again, does not repeat as Super Bowl champions, as I will share my Super Bowl predictions in yet another video. Thank you for taking the time out to watch and listen. And remember to like, share, and subscribe for more content.